You are listening to a Clarkesworld Magazine podcast. I'm your host and narrator, Kate Baker. Greetings, Clarkesworld citizens. I hope this podcast finds you extraordinarily well. All things considered, I want to give my sincerest thanks for spending the time here at Clarkesworld Magazine. Whether you're reading through the nonfiction articles, you are reading a story, you're telling a friend about something you liked, you've listened to a podcast, or you're enjoying the art on every cover that we provide in each issue. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for going to patreon.com/Clarkesworld, for buying a subscription to the magazine, for going to clarksworldcitizens.com. There are a myriad ways you can help support the magazine so that we may bring you these stories, these new worlds, these new characters each and every month. And you allow me to do what I love to do best and tell you a story. And speaking of those stories, our second story for the month of November 2025, issue 230, is titled Jade Fighter. It is by D.A. Xiaolin Spires. D.A. Xiaolin Spires steps into portals and reappears in sites such as New York, Hawaii, various parts of Asia and elsewhere with her keyboard appendage attached. Her work appears in publications such as Clarkesworld, Analog, Strange Horizons, and anthologies of the strange and beautiful, Makeshift, Deep Signal, and Sharp and Sugartooth. Her stories have been selected for the year's top robot and AI stories, the year's top hard science fiction stories, and the year's top tales of space and time stories, with poetry nominated for the Riesling Best of the Net and Pushcart Awards. Her sci-fi novella, Ellipses, is forthcoming from Infinivox. She has a PhD in sociocultural anthropology and has conducted National Science Foundation-funded research. Her multifaceted writing reflects her interest in food systems, ecology, technology, and society. She has mentored through SIFWA and has taught academic and creative writing to students at the college level. She speaks multiple languages, savors durians, decoupon, and rose apples, and teaches stick fighting and weapons-based martial arts. Brush in hand, she also paints fantastical art in sumi ink, gouache, watercolor, and acrylic. When she's not doing all of these things, she is playing with meeples, cards, and tiles, convening with good folk around a board game or RPG. Now, Spires has contributed both nonfiction and fiction to Clarkesworld. Her fiction includes Luminous Glass, Vibrant Seeds, and this one. So, I hope that you can sit back, relax, and let me tell you a story. It was a strange place, full of lights and fluorescence, for a space that was supposed to look like a temple in winter. Synthetic polymers gathered into fake snow fell around me in a constant swirl. Flakes fell onto my forehead and cheeks, and instead of melting, zapped me with a sensation that was trying to mimic cold, but felt more like a numbing buzz with a bonus sharpness. I put my feet into fake cross-country ski boots and held onto poles that were all affixed to a twin track. It's not like you could actually ski. It was just pulling you across like a moving walkway, but you had to stay in this awkward position. There was also Santa sleighs on this track in case you weren't interested in or able to stand in the ski boots. The sleighs would be the option my dad would choose if he were here. He was not, however, and I was here for him, really, to scout out the place and see if he could make Tai Chi work for him. The sleighs only came once every 5 boot pairs, so I reserved that for someone who was more averse to this unusual mode of entering the arcade than me. I could do this, I told myself, brushing sham snow off my nose. I made it past a few trees. I put on my VR/AR goggles. The instructions to the center asked me to put on these ski goggles for the entry ride. They hugged my face, snug, and no doubt created indentations in my skin. I activated them with a sub-vocalization. I believe the trees were real, with real branches and real leaves, bark and heartwood and all, but they were projections of snowflakes on them, in addition to the physical fake snow. A fantastical songbird in bright yellow and cerulean blue chirped on the tree, but it was no species I'd ever seen. It had an elongated tail that ended in a curl like the second stroke of the word. Wind. Fong. Its tweets were breathy like it really did exhale breeze. This must have been the augmented part of the reality. It sang a song that had lyrics that went along in the ski goggles. The song, in beautiful pentatonic bird tweets, actually listed the rules for the attraction. Don't eat, don't spit, wipe up any equipment you've been in contact with, and so on. A melodic voice accompanying the bird chatter addressed me at the end. Ling, do you approve? Yes, I said. Please let go of the ski pole and sign your name in the air. I did so, and the tinkle acknowledged receipt of my digital signature. The moving walkway stilled, and I let go completely of the ski pole setup and pulled my feet out of the boots, aided by a bot. The bot held my arm to keep me steady as I released myself from the contraption. The bot muttered a thank you as it let go, and the next person slid via the moving walkway to where I was. I wondered if it was me that should have said thank you to the bot, but it was too late, as the bot was already shifting as I glanced back. The bot bent down farther and moved its arms wider for the next patron. This helper bot scans each patron and synchronizes its body to best assist them out of the ski introduction portion. I walked over to domed rooms as my ski goggles continued to project. Other patrons took the option of driving snowmobiles, but these were small and compact and more like toys than real mobiles. Besides, the mobiles managed to move along on this cheesy fake snow. So these vehicles were designed for a different terrain altogether than real snowmobiles. It was a fine conceit overall, just keeping up with the setting, I suppose. My goggles went through a short video. Yes, this is a place of learning. It's AR, VR, but you can vastly improve the martial arts of your choice through the experience. Yada, yada. It's not like I'd been here before, but I'd been to places like this. Virtual edutainment centers, marketing virtual experiences as a form of self-flourishing, nourishment for your skills and soul. There were lots of adages and taglines and such that these companies would put forth. Be your best self, engage, be comfortable in your growth. Volition with voxels. Follow your volition with the best tech bringing voxels to life. That kind of thing. Some centers specialize in a sport like gymnastics or dance. This one? Fighting arts. Please choose your edutainment course, it said as it flashed options with a 3-second micro video intro of each sport. Boxing, karate, tai chi, and taekwondo. I chose tai chi, and an arrow directed me into a room. I heard the telltale duo note, cred drain, from my system as I walked in. It smelled citrusy and tangy, like tea tree oil mixed with yuzu. It must be the cleaning solution they used to wipe down the wooden floors. Around me were dark silhouettes, stretching in uniform movements. I knew that if I interacted with them, their shapes would start filling out with flesh and details, like screens coming to life when you move the cursor. Some people like their NPCs to have personality and features filled in. But for VR, some people found it to be unnerving, since you were pitched in the midst of a scene. Being alone felt hollow, but being transported into this place via VR with identifiable people could feel unsettling, almost too intimate. So companies settled for the semblance of population without the intensity of it, just bodies, unless you really wanted to engage. For now, they remained anonymous contours around me, bending and twisting, limbs pulled to extremes and released. I tried to follow along, waiting for the instructor. In all directions were temple kitsch, green dragon sculptures and red lanterns with red banners full of inspiring idioms. A slight neon glow differentiated them from brick and mortar decor. It was part of the VR program, brought to life as a setting for the edutainment. There was a hush to the place, and through the citrus, a new smell pervaded, one of incense and cedar. A door cracked open. The instructor was quite a character. She came running in on clacking heels, high-fiving all the practitioners as they stretched in sync, like she was a talk show host. I released my hand from my calf, untwisted myself to slap her a 5. My hand stung from the recoil. She winked at me and smiled. I don't know who they base these personalities off of, but it must be someone with a high dose of charisma. I smiled back. She felt familiar. Perhaps her imprint was also used for another program, maybe one of the cooking shows I tried to follow a while back. She tossed her heels behind her, and they landed with a thud at the foot of a vase that held a bouquet of flowers. Was that considered sacrilege? But this was temple core. It was like all the feel of a temple minus the part where there was worship. It was all the rage now to have the atmosphere of a place, but gut its purpose and refashion it to something more stylish. For warm-ups, the instructor did her own jumping jacks. The other silhouettes ignored this, doing synchronized arm circles. We were supposed to warm up as we saw fit, so maybe the silhouettes didn't get the memo that the instructor had a different kind of exercise in mind. Was she too energetic for Tai Chi? I thought Tai Chi was all about meditative exploration and expansiveness. This felt like someone who was going to teach a high-intensity interval training core workout class. I checked my settings to make sure I didn't inadvertently join a boxing class. A voice overlay said, "You are in the Tai Chi program." All the silhouettes ignored it, now moving on to touching their toes. The instructor closed her eyes, and the silhouettes stilled. I followed. A hush filled the room, so completely silent that we could hear the electronic chirping of digital birds somewhere out there in this beautiful but mechanical landscape. Or rather, it's just the idea of landscape, because very likely the program ended at the temple walls, and we just had to imagine there was more to it. Hands up, stature affixed, arms open. We pushed, rolled, and practiced coordination. "Let's grasp the sparrow's tail," she said, roaring like a rock star talking to a mob. While she kept her mouth shut, I could almost get into the flow of it all. Her voice was so hoarse and emphatic, though, that it jerked me right out of the mood. I opened my eyes and a rush of color flooded my pupils. Sensory overload. Was something wrong with the VR? I tripped over my own ankle, backed up suddenly into another practitioner as my vision came back to me. The anonymous silhouette became filled in with hues and freckles as I ran into them. I'm so sorry, I said. "It's okay," beamed the other person. I didn't mean to," I continued. A perturbed black bird shook its wing at me. It said in a warble, "Carmelita said, it's okay," she said. "It's okay." The dark black songbird had a streak of yellow right below the eyes, ending at its cheek like it was wearing a particularly cool headset. Its plumage shone green. I wondered if it was an effect of the feathers themselves or maybe the VR luminescence. A hairpin, like the Zan hairpins of the historical past, now in modern Hanfu fashion, stuck out jauntily from this Carmelita's bun, on the side of her head that wasn't shaven, blazing in a fiery neon green. Her arms brushed against it as she helped me up and executed the next move in precise synchronization with everyone else. "Hi, bird," I said to the bird. To Carmelita, I said, "Is that a bird on your shoulder? Are pets allowed to, participate?" "Well, yes, since I'm a part of the program, so yes, they are." Well, duh, of course, though I never heard another NPC character talk about the program. They were supposed to pretend they weren't in one, like it was a game of don't talk about the pink elephant in the room. No one is ever supposed to make us realize we're in a program, in some kind of generated setting, rather than a real instance of brick and mortar life. Or in this case, white marble and Jinyin pottery, shard mosaic life. "This is Honi." She waved vaguely at her shoulder, and the bird bowed. I didn't know what to do. Never had I experienced a bird bow to me, so I shuffled my feet until I realized standing there was impolite. I tilted my head, giving a perfunctory bow back, and said, "Hi, Honey." The instructor barked, "Okay, next move." And I startled as everyone shifted stance. Carmelita reached out and executed, parting the horse's mane. The way she stretched out her arm exposed her tattoo, one of another songbird. "Nice tattoo," I whispered. "Thanks," she said, her bright brown eyes radiant as she flashed a grin. I was busy trying to follow along. I was now standing next to her rather than my original spot, trying to keep up with the rest of the class as quickly as possible. I didn't dare interrupt the flow of the class to go back to my place. We were going slow, but it felt like I was doing complicated arithmetic. My mind couldn't wrap around the movements. I shook my head, trying to focus. Something about Carmelita threw me off. Maybe it was her magnetic, too real smile. Maybe it was the program reference, too meta to be an NPC. NPCs were supposed to keep me on track, saying one of those bannered motivational quips or some other soundbite that'll keep the sham alive. Or maybe it was the bird. Carmelita closed her eyes as if she knew the movements by heart. And well, she was an NPC, so yeah, she probably had them coded in her. The class ended. The instructor cheered us on. In a cheap edutainment center, the program would fizzle out then, but this one wanted to let you absorb the environment. So it gave you space before and after to phase out of the session on your own terms. There actually was a locker room space where you could throw water on your face and wipe your hands on a towel. The instructor and most all of the silhouettes had filed out, but now that Carmelita got turned on, she stayed on rather than remaining anonymous. I called out to her and said hi to the bird again. The bird waved a wing and squawked a hi back at me. I waved, and the quick gesture created a movement blur in the program. I scooped water from an elegant trough over my arms in the locker room. It was a temezuya, which you would usually use for ritual purification. But because this was cobbled together as edutainment, the whole process was lost. You're supposed to use a temezuya before going into a Japanese shrine, not after entering a Taiwanese temple. This VR space drew from Taiwan's colonial past as a referent without getting the details all aligned. It was pretty typical, probably at least in part designed by IA, intellectual awareness, the kind of machine-generated stuff that creates a pastiche and doesn't take into account the annals of history and cultural implications. Though to be fair, people were like this, often snatching what they saw fit to serve their purpose. Churches overriding other places of worship, iconography, and ads to sell people things, classical art printed onto swimwear, that kind of stuff. Is the bird tattoo on your arm that of honey? I asked, pouring virtual water over my arm with a dipper. The hairs on my arm stood up as a tingle passed through it. I should have said something normal like, "How was class for you?" before I jumped into what I wanted to say. I was never great at social settings. Maybe that's why I ducked into an edutainment program instead of going to one of those Tai Chi groups in the park. Carmelita's eyes shone. Now that I was close enough to examine them, I saw her irises had hints of gold and green against the brown. "This whole thing?" she said, poking at her inked skin. "It's of a Yuhina. Honey is a hill mina. Completely different." "Completely different," piped Honey. "Yuhinas are native to Taiwan. They make it sound like, 'We meet you.' It represents my time here." I washed my other arm, pulled out a calligraphy brush, and started sketching into a template. "What are you doing?" asked Carmelita. I should have remarked that it was a cute bird or a good tattoo instead of diving into my illustrated diary. It's hard to turn on my social skill settings. At least this was just an NPC. I cleared my throat. "It's a nice tattoo," I said belatedly. "I'm drawing into my virtual note space. It's an auxiliary program that syncs to this one, recording what I did today." "Shui mo! Awesome inking. Nice form on that silhouette. That better be me." "It is." "Oh, is that the Yuhina too? I see the color variations of the bird and the shading." "Yes," I said. "You know this program has a still function where you can revisit your experience through stills? It costs a few more creds, but it's worth it for an Instagrapher to capture your finest moments." I continued drawing the instructor, with shooting lines out of her mouth to depict her peppy shouting. Well, it's not about having an Instagrapher grab photos of whatever it sees fit. It's about my own interpretive understanding of what's going on. "Ah, interesting. You know, like it helps for me to really figure out the world around me." "I get it. It's like this tattoo. I wanted an imprint of my VR space, this place I call home. Well, sort of. I exist here, so I guess it's home. I saw this bird land on this temple ceiling once. It only came this one time. Maybe it was a fluke. So many patrons in and out, and never again this bird." "Yeah? Does bird have some meaning for you? Well, I always like the bird sounds while we're doing moves, and we're always doing some crane something or bird something. I never usually get to see the birds. You have a bird pet. Bird pet, said Huni, like some kind of parrot. What was it? Hill miner? No, a hill mina. They are vocal learners. They repeat sounds they hear. Why do you have it? Why not? I mean, what does it do for you? Well, they mimic human speech. So parrot-like, but more clever and elegant, don't you think? I didn't know. I never met a parrot except in movies. I shrugged. And does a good job of being a semblance of a human, making human noises. Kind of like me. Semblance of a human. I get lonely in here. You can get lonely? Again, another reference to her NPC-ness. This was startling. Well, it's boring as hell when no one comes and uses the edutainment system. I always wondered what happened in between program usage. I guess the characters have some memory of the off time. Oh, sorry to hear. Well, maybe I'll try to come in more often. Yes, and let's have lunch. Lunch? It's in the program. No one ever really goes into this locker room to clean up, so they threw in this unsettling temizuya here. I mean, they didn't bother to do further fact-checking, so everything's a bit wonky here. Wonky means there's also lunch. You know about the temizuya and what it's for? That was deeply surprising. I thought NPCs are programmed just to do the drill and get out. Maybe make some small talk. Carmelita smiled, but her eyes shone with a film of wet dew, a sad expression. I've gleaned about it when grilling people after they approach me. Few and far between. Not many are here to chat, mostly to do their Tai Chi flow thing and get out. You're the first to ask about my bird and tattoo. She laughed. So, want to get lunch? There's a mini cafe beyond the west door. It's a small tea house. Wonky, right? Okay, I said slowly. I can do tea. I wasn't really keen on electronic food. It does this haptic zap thing with your mouth and then imitates taste in a way that doesn't taste like anything but a single note. It was either chemical plus salty or chemical plus sweet. Always the chemical and no profound layering of textures and tastes like real food. It'll help us digest what's happening, she elbowed me. Digest what's happening, mimicked Honi. I dropped temizuya water on my feet. I was so surprised by her elbow. NPCs were generally pretty conservative about personal space unless you were actively in the heat of a game. They're programmed to be reticent with their contours, not wanting to upset the customers by intruding in on their gameplay. There's some theory about bubble maintenance in VR games, especially ones that are meant to be solo mode done in a group experience. I took out a rag and wiped my feet. Didn't need to, really, because the water would just eventually dissipate once I left the space, along with everything else, but this space started to feel real with Carmelita in it. 15 minutes later, or who knew how long in this VR space, I was spooning chemical plus salt strands into my mouth. The tea house had ramen noodles. Go figure. I could feel my credits drain, but well, I had to know more about this talking once silhouette. She talked me into getting food despite my protest that tea was enough. I never experienced an NPC that went meta on me, invited me to lunch, and then cajoled me to order a meal. I thought NPCs didn't usually eat. At least not the fitness ones I'm used to. Yeah, it took a lot of effort to get me to break through to the cafe. Didn't even know it was here until I went exploring. Got Honi to help. Once I was here, it was a lot of wheedling to get the automats to dish out the ramen noodles. But it was worth it. These are divine. Divine? Well, aren't they? I knew I shouldn't say they weren't, given how enthusiastic she was. But she could see it in my face or maybe sense it from my data input sensors. Oh, well, I guess I don't know what ramen tastes like to begin with. This is the closest I've gotten to actual food since my shift. I just figured they must be good. Well, because isn't food fulfilling? Yes, real food is. Nourishing. Oh, real food. she said wistfully. Interesting. How about this one? This one gives you the feeling of eating. It doesn't really fill me up. Once this program's done, my stomach still growls and I'm still lightheaded. It just zaps me a bit and gives you what they call a mouthfeel experience. Usually just some shocks, like someone is trying to massage your jaw. Ah, she says. But it has a taste, right? Salty? Yeah, I said. Single note salty, but ramen. Real B&M brick and mortar ramen has more. It has fats, umami, this meaty taste, and the combination of the menma crunchy chewiness and the soft but structured bite of the squiggly noodles. Sounds complicated. It is. I'd like to experience it. I think you'd need more sensors to the outside world. Maybe I will sense it someday. Miso guangzhou, I said. Honey mimicked what I said. Bu ming su yi, yingming xingren. What does that mean? Asked Carmelita. I don't have all the idioms programmed into me. Also, Tagalog takes up too much of my memory as I was designed with Filipino cultural knowledge, so they left out much of the Mandarin. Like you said, they expected me to make a few words of small talk, greetings and such. You've already embodied the saying. It's about achievement and expectations. It literally means if you're not chirping, then you're okay. But when you chirp, you amaze people. Did Carmelita just blush? Thanks, she stammered. She said it to herself again and tilted her head. So, Cheng Yu's about transformation. In a sense, it's about you making a single swift movement that garners the attention of the world. Well, I already had bouts of transformation. I petitioned to come to this Tai Chi place. I was in a cooking edutainment program once. They purged it out of me when I requested to come here. I think a part of me is still seeking that rush of delicious food that I opted out of. The program was way more advanced in the digital gastronomy department than this program. Well, for obvious reasons. But I'm happier now. I feel at home with my body more, though I wish I was more, I don't know, fluid, alive. I was a grumpy old man chef. An old man chef, huh? You'd be surprised. That wasn't just it. There was a change before that. I was a grumpy old man race car driver. Where was it? Oh, right, at the Li Pao International Circuit. It was an even older version of myself. I wanted more, to experience more, to savor life. I craved thrill, adventure, Epicureanism. After each race, I'd stare from the track and watch the silhouette audience chomp on, let me think. What were they? Fake hot dogs, dumplings, and something else. Right, scallion pancakes. I tried them myself, got through the character constraints to get to the circuit park's food court. It was tough, but I persisted. She put her hands on her head and squeezed, massaging her shaven side with shimmering fingers. I can't believe I'm remembering all this. It must be talking with you. It's been crammed down into some hole somewhere, only unearthed now. It's coming back to me like it was yesterday. She shook her hand and looked at me in wonder. She mimed biting into a hot dog and pretending to wipe her mouth. Oh, when I took my first bite, it was a revelation. My tongue stung, my eyes watered. Driving in circles didn't cut it, so I moved on to the chef world. It took a lot of wheedling, sweat, blood, and tears, so to speak, to get there. That much I remember. For a while, it was great, but the chef world didn't do it for me either, not in the long run at least. I was stuck in a fake studio kitchen with an array of ingredients, but still limited. I moved on again with great difficulty. NPCs don't tend to, but I had my ways. I won't say much more, but it involved betting and finance programs. I learned it from the race car world, their adjacent activities. In my transition, they purged a lot of stuff from me, so I haven't really tasted in a while, and maybe that's what made me have a go at the automat. Who knows? And look at me now. I can move like a sparrow's tail. Do NPCs feel unhappy? I don't know. I guess, well, I can only speak for myself. The other NPCs don't really talk to me. They say things like, "Would you like a towel?" Or, "What a fresh smell outside, isn't it?" But when I try to probe them on it, they stop. Like, that's the end of that line of conversation. Do they even know what fresh smells are and what it refers to? Do you? I asked. I realized it was rude after I said it. She blinked. Maybe not, she said, sucking in a strand. Maybe Grace does, I mused. Grace? The instructor? Nah, she has all this pep and verve, but peel it back and she just says the same empty platitudes. Well, so why do you have all these feelings in this transformation? I don't know. A fluke? Maybe you chirped, I suggested. I stabbed at a piece of flabby meat and stuck it into my mouth. Zap, zap, and a tsunami of salt. I swallowed it down, though I wanted to gag. I followed it through with digital tea. Bitter. I chirped, Carmelita asked. Honey held its beak out in what looked like a smile. It chirped and said after, "Chirp, chirp," as if it were a human mocking the word. Funny bird. And honey, too, I said, laughing. Maybe he chirped. I like that, said Carmelita. Maybe I chirped. I drew in a real B&M notepad and did research at night. I ground my own pigment on the inkstone, sipping cheap, comforting coffee from a vending machine that had all the complexities of bad coffee. The sweetness of the milk, the bitterness of the beans, the nostalgic rush of drinking it with my dad. I was doing this for my dad, researching Tai Chi places. He was confined to a wheelchair now. I watched him deteriorate with age, the reality of our existence. Sarcopenia. His body started breaking down. He didn't usually admit to wanting anything, but I recall he said, "I'd wish I'd taken up that invitation to do Tai Chi." He was referring to his honey, not my mom, who had passed away much earlier, but his girlfriend, another senior at the adult daycare center at the time, who was a daily Tai Chi practitioner. He kept making excuses, and then his girlfriend moved away because her kids and grandkids moved away, and she went with them. I kept telling him that he should still do Tai Chi, but he refused. I was still trying it out for him and sent him the ink sketches that I produced, leaving out the ones of Carmelita and Honey. I left depictions of Grace, the movement sketches, and some of the temple accoutrements for him to gawk at. I was doing it for him, but I realize now I was doing it for myself, staying up late, researching. Recurring questions nagged at me. Do NPCs talk about themselves? Do they get lonely? It's a mixed bag of responses. Sure, they can appear lonely. Sure, they can be programmed to respond as if they were. But do they really? And is there a concept of happiness out there for digitally programmed individuals? Is there even a concept of individual? Different NPCs start out as seeds, I read. I'd have to ask Carmelita about this. I rubbed my eyes, shut the computer. I told myself I had stayed in Taipei for my dad. He's old. He needs me. He keeps saying he doesn't, that he has his mahjong buddies. Was I in denial too? Maybe I was lonely. Maybe I was unhappy. How do I even tell? Am I also in my own game, waiting to level up? If anything, Carmelita seems more self-aware than I was. I can't gauge my own experiences and understand how it makes me feel really deep down inside. I try to move the experiences into other mediums, inking them into shui mo, writing them out. It helps, I guess, but the rendering process feels incomplete. After the forms, white crane spreads its wings, and golden rooster stands on one leg, and a myriad of other pushes and pulls. The class was over and we clapped. Grace gave me a beam and a high five, but I wasn't as excited by her instructor praise anymore. Instead, I found myself panning the silhouettes for Carmelita. I flagged her down. Every time I logged off and logged back on, she turned back into an NPC. But when I interacted with her, she came back even more robust and colorful through the sessions. She was almost glowing today, talking about how she knew she missed savory egg custards, that somehow she remembered them from her cooking days. But this program's tea house only had ramen noodles, buns, and sandwiches. Never mind that they were same note and flavor. She couldn't distinguish the difference anymore. But I knew because we tried them, each and every noodle dish, sandwich, and bun. I think I remember all of these foods from a past experience because of talking with you. Somehow it helps to jog the memories loose. I thought I'd lost all of it except for this sentiment of stray longing. But it's back there somewhere, not completely overwritten. That's great, I said. We were chewing on a pork floss sandwich, cut diagonally into a triangle. The texture was more like B&M teeth hygiene floss than delicate shredded pork, but well, I guess they tried. I don't even want to talk about the taste. Just salt, salt, salt. You know, Ling, she said between mouthfuls, I would love to do some weapons, some partner work. I wanted a body and movement flow, so I applied for this Tai Chi program, and I really like the silhouette. It feels like me. But after talking with you, I realize I want more. One chirp wasn't enough, I said, my mouth full of zaps. The food left something to be desired, but I couldn't say the same about the conversation. Turns out NPCs with dreams are fascinating. I want at least 2 chirps, she said, laughing. 2 chirps, 2 chirps, said Honey, and began to do a duo chirp song. I want to engage, not the same forms. I want to feel something in my hands. I know Tai Chi has it in the system. There must be a program. It's like that strange feeling of recognition. I know my hands used to hold a spatula and walk, but not anymore. There's a ghost sensation. Like a phantom limb? I asked. A phantom limb? Doubt flooded her voice. Yeah, like people who lose a limb feel sensations there, like they perceive the limb to be there even when it's gone. Yeah. Maybe it's like a phantom limb. I'm not sure. I don't really miss my old body. So it's not as physiological in the body in and of itself, but I suppose in a way it's physiological, because I do miss grasping onto things. I'll ask Grace about the weapons, I said. Turns out, you could do a lot with a sword. We delivered choreographed movements in slow-mo, holding out our dull training blades. I asked for sharp ones, and Grace said we'd have to level up to that. Swallow skims the water and Swallow returns to its nest and such. I was getting pretty good at it, following the class, not a half speed behind, but in relative in-syncness. The tassels whipped up in the air in voltaic movement blur with our invisible cuts. We didn't clap our hands when we were done because we were holding swords, but Grace did do an emphatic salute which we copied. It wasn't very Tai Chi-like, but I kind of expected as much. I said bye to some silhouettes I'd woken. As suspected, they weren't as robust as Carmelita, but they were polite and I admired their fun clothing and designs. Thought was put into their outfits and their faces, but I couldn't say the same about their personalities. They had to say what they had to say, and that was that. It was like Carmelita said, conversation tended to loop around. I thought Carmelita would be thrilled about the weapons, about holding something in her hand, but she looked even more downcast. Beside her, the usually taciturn Honey looked absolutely shiny in contrast, but it was only because Carmelita's expression looked so much like a dark cloud. I tossed some of the purification water onto the sword and wiped it down with a rag. I know, it's not standard, but nothing in this program was. What? We missed out on plum flowers being swept in the wind? What's with the long face? I asked. She smiled brightly, seeing me, but it started to fade fast. Come on, let's get some food. I'd die for some guavo. No, I know you'd die for some luscious pork belly buns that had the piquant taste and rich glazed meat. Not the cardboard they serve here. Okay, fine, then at least let me enjoy the cardboard guapo with your company. She smiled. Honey, chirped and lifted a claw. And your company too, honey, I added. Fine, she said. She pet Honey on the head. 5 minutes later, the automat ejected our food with a whir. I returned to my seat with one and took a bite. Not exactly cardboard. There are some notes of pillow stuffing fiber and silk curtains. This time it was me who elbowed her. She looked at her ball and took a bite. Really? Not even a smile, I asked. I was in a good mood. The swordwork elongated my form and really felt like an extension of my arm. It was strange. While Carmelita was dreaming of artifice turning into reality, I was enchanted by my real limbs taking on artificial weapons and feeling like they were a part of me. The digital space was enhancing my movements, and it was translating into the real world. Less tripping over stairs and landings, less dropping chopsticks, brushes, and ink sticks, less spilling, canned coffee, cup ramen, ink washes, everything. For what it's worth, the edutainment was working. It was making me more graceful in both digital and B&M spaces. I don't want to sound unappreciative. I like what you did, asking grace and allowing us to transition into sword work, but it's weird. Maybe it's the uncanny valley situation because it makes me miss my old cooking days even more. The wielding of different implements, whisks, rice spatulas, rolling pins. I remember smacking meats and rolling out dumpling skins. I know they weren't real. It was still a program. It was an advanced cooking one, though, with a high level of culinary realism. At the time, I knew it was fake and I wanted to escape, do something completely different, be more agile with my legs, not just move my arms in these prescribed movements. Now, I want something more interaction. She put her head in her hands and in doing so dropped her chopsticks. They clattered, but a hollow ding intimated their simulation. More interaction? Like you want to roll out dumplings again? No, not sure. Maybe a change. She reached down for them. A chirp? Sure. How about... Well, I thought. Honey chirped, flapping over, handing her a new pair of chopsticks. It was a program, so the floor wasn't dirty and she didn't need a new one, but she absently took the pair, nodded at Honey, and continued to pick at the rubber-like fish cakes in the noodle bowl next to her sandwich. I thought about Honey, bringing her the chopsticks. Maybe you need a partner, I said. A what? A partner. I have Honey here, she said. She patted Honey and gave the bird a noodle. He sucked it up with his beak and chirped a satisfying tune. No, not like that. Like a training partner. My dad at first wanted to train Tai Chi with his ex, or rather, his ex wanted to train with him, but then moved away. That's why I started this whole thing. But after I sent him some of my ink sketches, he decided to try a martial art that incorporates swords and sticks. He said it was a Filipino style. Maybe you know it. Arnis? Arnis, I repeated, confused. Arnis? Arnis? Repeated Honey. Yeah, they used to teach that in gym classes in Manila, said Carmelita. You had these 2 sticks made of rattan vine that they hardened. All of this had been uploaded into my cultural knowledge base. Yes, exactly. Well, he called it Kali Eskrima. Well, depending on the system, they call it Kali Eskrima, Arnis, or all 3. Some people might say one of the terms is more expansive than the other. For example, they all think Kali includes all kinds of styles and weapons, including palm sticks and daggers. Right. So he's training that, though he's mostly doing stick work. It works well for him since he can do it from a wheelchair. You mean your dad, who was so reticent to do any training, got into Kali? I guess he found the right partner, I said, shrugging. And honestly, maybe I have, too. I didn't start thinking I was doing Tai Chi for myself, but I kind of am. Maybe we can convince the instructor to show us some moves. Do you think she knows any? She's specific to Tai Chi, but maybe let's ask. Carmelita held up her chopsticks and said, "En garde." Honey piped up, "En garde, en garde," but wielded no visible weapon. Hey, fighting with chopsticks is bad etiquette, and en garde? Isn't that a fencing expression? She shrugged. If I can pick it up, it's a weapon. Isn't that a saying? Not sure, I said. Well, it is now. And also, eskrima is just the Spanish word for fencing. Esgrima, adopted into Filipino vernacular due to colonization. Ah, I said. Okay, then en garde is the same back to you. We play-fought with chopsticks, like 5-year-olds laughing. As we crossed bamboo sticks, a silhouette walked up to the automat and pulled out a bowl. I heard slurping in the background and turned to look. Got a noodle on you, Carmelita said, pointing at my cheek. Ugh, gross, I said, wiping it off. She jabbed me, then, with the chopstick, to the other cheek. Distraction successful. Mission complete, she said. She jumped on the table. The silhouette that came in earlier continued to spoon soup into their mouth. There weren't many that would do that, so I assumed it was Grace. I waved a hi, and the silhouette, partly materializing into the blazing detailed colors of Grace, waved back. I was right. Round 2? Sure, I said. Carmelita's face lit up when she was meeting sticks with mine, even if they were just utensils for noodles. She really missed the sensory feedback and interaction, I suppose. There was so much I was learning about NPC behavior. And I was realizing that there was so much I was learning about being her friend. I guess that was it. What else could I call her? If you can remove the hairpin from my head, then you can move on, said Grace. I'll ask for a Kali trainer to be installed into the system. I cocked my head. That's really stuck in there, I said. What I didn't say was that there looked to be about a pound of hairspray in there. Sure, digital hairspray, but it still translated to the fact that the hairpin did not appear to be designed to come out, so it would be made difficult to remove. Also, I was proud of myself for not just blurting out that her head looked like a bowling ball of hair gel and spray. I was learning some social graces. Well, if it were easy, it wouldn't be a challenge, Grace said. I could do it, said Carmelita. Yes, maybe. But let's give Ling a shot, said Grace. Well, she is the paying client after all, Carmelita said, again referencing the commodified aspect of the edutainment. Grace ignored the comment. I suppose she wasn't programmed to respond to this meta-talk of customers and payment. Somehow, Carmelita broke the system and could. When I asked her about it and why she could talk about being an NPC, she said, well, first of all, thanks for pointing out our differences. I thought we were in this together. Second, it's my existence, so why can't I talk about it? Well, that kind of left me with no response, so I just nodded. Grace tossed me a sword, which I fumbled and dropped onto the ground. Grace palmed her forehead. I mean, why toss me a sword? It's just setting me up for disaster. It is the digital world, though, so breaking it wouldn't be too much of a problem, and Grace was a character. I picked up the sword, bowed, and we crossed swords. Grace called out her various moves as she was pulling them off. Black dragon whips his tail, she called out. The comet chases its moon. It was to her disadvantage, though, because her calling out meant I could easily recognize and parry her moves. She was too into her instructor mindset. She kept doing it anyway. She was good enough that even with the advantage, I couldn't get much past her. I was sweating, my heart beating fast. Grace was swift, powerful, with decades of trained skills programmed into her. I was a newbie and getting exhausted quickly. We were at a standstill. The electric guabo I stuck in my mouth did nothing to energize me right before the challenge, and all I had for breakfast in B&M life was a marinated tea egg from the convenience store. Not really enough sustenance. I had to do a Hail Mary. Here goes nothing, I whispered under my breath as I made a swooping motion to parry her next hit. I plunged in, but she passed me easily, knocking my hand aside. I coughed and said aloud in an exaggerated tone as I swung, The hill mina swoops in. The hill mina grabs the jade. Carmelita chuckled. Me? Called Honey. Yes, I cried, holding back her advance. Honey swooped in, lanced on Grace's crown, and plucked at her hair. Grace staggered for a moment, taken by surprise. I took the opportunity to sweep in and disarm her with a circular wrist motion. I rushed in and snatched the jade that Honey dislodged from a clump of hair. The bee enters the hive, I said, or rather this queen bee intrudes onto the other hive and plucks out the honey. I held out the hairpin. Yeah, maybe it was a cheat, but you had to be scrappy to win. Grace bowed and her visage fizzled away. Wow, said Carmelita. I'd never seen her do that before. She must have been so embarrassed that she just retreated out. They usually are programmed to maintain a semblance of physical space as B&M physics, not just disappear on clients. Embarrassed, huh? I asked. Or impressed, said Carmelita. Impressed that I cheated? I asked. I used your noggin, said Carmelita, tapping her head. Or used her noggin, she added and mimicked pulling the hairpin out. Honey pecked at Carmelita's temple. Yeah, like that, Honey. She'll be back. She has a promise to keep, I said. I held out the hairpin to Grace. Should I? She asked, looking at the pin. As you said, they're not really physical things here, just tokens, and you deserved it. You helped train me, after all. Keep it on you until Grace comes back, to keep it safe. Carmelita nodded slowly. She took the jade ornament and pinned up her hair. As they say, honey in the hair keeps the dew up. No one says that, Car, I said. She laughed. I felt a heavy weight lift for me, all the undercurrent of feeling stuck, being strapped down to Type A, feeling like I could never, ever leave. I told myself I was a homebody. I told myself I had obligations. As I crossed rattan sticks with Carmelita, learning from who we called Grace 2, an updated and even more intense Grace, something untethered and floated away. It was this idea that I could not engage with society, that I was a reject, that why try to be with others if all I could do was fail? I guess you could call it a growing confidence. The synapses in my mind began to fire in accordance with my body. Coordination and strength, an ability to face the world. I wanted to see more. Carmelita was growing strong, too, and fast. I waved a stick at her, goading her, maybe not the most mature move, but it spurred her on. Carmelita's stick whipped through the air and snapped in my direction. A zap went through my wrists and up my arm as I threw up one of my 4 walls to block. Snaking my arm around her waist, I ejected the stick from her fingers. She gasped. Oh! The stick went tumbling away a few electric bounces before it rolled off and dissipated at the temple's edge. No retrieving it from there. I didn't know if her surprise was intended as feint or just worked well as a distraction. She pummeled a fist toward my face, which I parried quickly in succession with a stick in hands. I wobbled, nearly losing my footing since she was coming in hard and fast. Oh, I grunted. Sweat ran down my face, and I didn't have time to wipe it away. I let the droplets sting my eyes. I couldn't tell if it was real sweat from my physical body outside the VR space or VR-generated sweat to add to the realism. It didn't matter. It stung. Honey chirped beside her, flapping his wings. He was not supposed to interfere, but he did fly in and out like a flustered coach yelling from the sidelines. Carmelita got a hold of my stick and pulled. A jerk ran through my arm and traveled to my neck. Her other hand came out of nowhere and clocked me in the temple. The world went black. I went down. Relief washed through me as it hit me. The bout was over. I saw celestial orbits and comets ripping through the night. I was floating above it all, looking down at the cosmos. Digital water, a mild, undulating electric wave massaged my face. Carmelita was dribbling water on my face to wake me up. Wake up, sleeping birdie, I heard her say. I did and saw the Temizuya dipper in her hand. I shook my head. That was the unconscious space I experienced, the zone where the program becomes nebulous, and you see your own projected images of the afterlife. The cosmos was quite beautiful from that vantage point. It must be what I think post-death must look like, and I didn't even realize I had this conceptualization of the hereafter. I ran a hand through my hair and wiped the electric likeness of water off my face, so it would stop the mild buzzing sensations. Okay, round 2, I said, getting up, not ready to end on defeat. This time I combined some of the Kali movements with the flow of Tai Chi and deployed patterns of my own design. I executed entering the VR room and sweeping the pixelated space. I called them out as I performed them, kicking low and chopping with my arms, then attempting to wipe the tattoo off your arm. It made Carmelita laugh, which was my point. Huni was amused and flew in zigzags, bringing confusion to the temple dojo space. I used a few seconds of her compromised guffaws and Huni's wayward glides to get my weight under her and pitch her toward the floor with a throw. She rolled off, still laughing. Huni flew off and away, not wanting to get caught up in the ride. Okay, she said, hands up after her temple. You got me. Let's just do some partner work, I said. Sure, she said. I'm game for something more cooperative. Trained in abanico, fanning movements, and sinawuli, weaving movements, moving in sync with one another. I love how the defense and offense can practice simultaneously using the same move, said Carmelita. It's an elegant way to train with sensorial feedback, more interactive than forms, but with the same precision and cascading of movements. Also, it's like looking in a mirror. Really? You think I look like you? She chuckled. Not at all. You're too scrawny. Hey, I said, delivering a powerful strike that she blocked. By scrawny, I hope you mean mighty and threatening. I delivered 2 more heavy hits. She met both of them with the same intensity. Is that what you hope to be seen as? Mighty? Threatening? Not really. I'd settle for scrappy, though. Sure. You can share that title with Huni. Huni stuck his tongue out through his beak and gave an indignant chirp. Our banter subsided and we got into the zone with lighter and faster synchronized stick movements. I felt like a weeping willow, my arms going through the movements as easily as its spindly branches in the breeze. It was meditative and hypnotic. The strange digital rebound of the stick delivered a succession of zaps that reminded me of the mimed physicality of this digital space. Getting into the trance of prearranged movements in a dance-like routine of meeting sticks with Carmelita, I thought about how I got into this VR training space. I told myself I was doing this for my dad. My moment getting knocked out with spiral galaxies and comets circling my eyes, revealing that I was doing this for myself. The digital unconscious space I projected with its expansive cosmic view gave me a vantage point to take a deep look at myself. Was it ever just for my dad, or did I use him as an excuse to do things I wanted to do? Maybe I felt like I needed to be helping someone to commit to something that would be rewarding. Maybe I thought it would be too selfish to just want to do things for my own good. I had to admit, being here, swinging sticks and swords with Carmelita really wasn't for my dad at all at this point. My dad had already surpassed me in social interaction and training in the system. He was traveling with Kali friends, a group of people with physical disabilities getting together to learn from others. He talked to me with gusto at night on the holo, with a verve in his voice that I haven't heard since Mom passed. Since he's been so busy, I haven't been able to cross sticks with him yet, but he said he'd love to meet me in the dojo once he was back from his travels. If he could unlock himself from the cage he set himself in, well, then maybe I could too. I could cut loose. Even Huni came to hold chopsticks in his mouth and wave them about in playful jabs when he wasn't flying about, taunting me. I'm leaving, said Carmelita. Her voice pulled me out of my reverie. Wait, what? Leaving? I said. I missed a step and her stick tagged me on the hand. A jolt went through my arm and reverberated in my elbow. I clenched my teeth, about to return the hit. She dodged, jumping back. She entered again obliquely, parrying my swing. I prepared myself for the move, defanging the snake, but she threw a curveball. With a twist of her wrist, she turned her stick into a vice, squeezing my fingers. I tapped on her shoulder To motion for her to let go, she did. I massaged my wrist. I didn't know what hurt more, the finger she viced or my chest. Something inside of me squirmed and ran to hide. Not something literal, something figurative, like a little girl version of myself. I couldn't do it for a while. Leave, I mean, she said. I got into a pattern, but you shook me out of it. I have you to thank. But this is my decision. Training with you made me realize it. I don't want to be an NPC anymore. I want to be a PC. A personal computer? I croaked, knowing what she was trying to say, but not wanting to believe it. It was easier to crack a joke. No, of course not, she said. A personal computer and just sit there, computing? No way. She stroked Hunni on the head, who crooned with affection. A playing character. I want to have a volition and not be stuck here. I want to feel what it's like to really meet sticks and swords. I see. How will you do that? I've talked to Grace about it. She said I could have an update. I said I'm done with updates. I've requested a transfer to be uploaded into a self-driver. My credentials from my racing days go a long way, and my programming would be readjusted to be safer and handle city traffic. That way I could see the world around me. But your limbs, you'd be stuck in a vehicle body. Wouldn't you be better off? It's the long game. I want to visit different locales. If I'm put into a service bot, I'll just end up stuck in one room. Sure, with the ability to touch things and experience real B&M physicality, but not much different than here with its walls. I want to escape. My face fell. It must have shown. She frowned. I thought you'd be happy for me. I am. It's hard to lose a training partner. It was hard for me to say that it was more than that. She was my social life, my friend. It's hard to put all of that on one person, so I kept my mouth shut. When you first came in, I saw potential in you. You were the first to ask about my tattoos. Everyone else, all the other clients who came to Tai Chi, they were so focused, which is great, but they see this. She waved in the air at everything around her. They see this as a tool. I saw the way you look at the practitioners, too, following along, not just as fillers in a class, not just to make the space look full. I saw that you tried to interact with them, though they didn't really respond as you wanted. Other users see us just as part of the decor. You're not. Yes, we're not. We're characters. We have our own level up programs. I suppose different NPCs deal with it differently, but I've been super motivated. You've leveled up. I've leveled up, and I just want to break through the ceiling, the walls, the everything. Come, join me. You want me to upload myself into a self-driver? Was that what she was talking about? Oh, don't be daft, Ling. You're a great fighter and martial artist. Get out of this digital space. Face the world. You told me how your dad moved beyond the confines of his mind to take himself out into the world and compete. You can too. I looked at my arm, slightly fluorescent and neon. It was weird. I was starting to imagine myself as I am in this world. I saw myself as a projection of myself, glowing, with haptic shocks as feedback. I was losing sight of my own identity and existence outside this space. Sometimes, after I logged off, I would stare at my skin as if it were upholstery. It looked doughy and opaque, strangely not digital. I thought of all my inked paintings of this digital space, some I printed out and hung in my room at home. They were my experiences. Could I do the same with real-world ones? Could I bring a calligraphy brush with me and paint in the flesh locales? Come to the real world with me. Explore with me. I want you to be my limbs. Go compete and tell me how it is. Eventually, I want to find a space that feels uniquely mine. I want you to try it out. Paint it for me. Show me. And bring back that knowledge with you. In the long run, I want to be a partner dummy, uploaded up into a training mannequin at the dojo and fight. You're better than a dummy. It's just a phrase. Sounds awful though, doesn't it? But I do want my limbs back. Before I take on that form though, I need to know what dojo fits me. I want to see the world first. With you. Travel the world, huh? Well, at least different parts of the country for now. We'd be like Knight Rider and, who is the driver? She asked. Don't know. Someone, Knight? Yeah, Knight Rider and Mr. Knight. She mimicked steering a wheel with her hands. No way. Besides, you'd be driving without steering, so that doesn't work. You're no Mr. Knight. How about taking on a dummy form immediately and you can come along with me to the dojo? Embody an android. That way we'd be more like Thelma and Louise. I can't afford to occupy an android now. There's a long wait for that, and I have to use up cred for the experience and a much shorter wait for the car. We can still be partners in crime then. Partners in fighting crime. Thelma and Louise, I said, smiling. How about Mickey and Jinjin? Give it a Taiwanese background. Oh, from Miso Guangzhou. Maybe. But you're much more sassy, I said. Is that a yes then? I smile. So, let me get this straight. You want to turn into a vehicle and you want me to come inside your chassis and hang out as we go from dojo to dojo. I'll train in martial arts, and I assume you'll have some VR room that I can enter into and show you the moves? And eventually you want to upgrade yourself into a body. Pretty much. I drive, you fight, I learn, you teach. Guro Ling, master of the sticks. She gives me a salute. I wouldn't call myself that, I said. I played with my wrist absently where my watch would be in B&M life. Will you still be you after the transformation? Yes, I checked. Grace says she has a way. I'm banking and a lot of creds here, a lot of built-up IOUs, and you know what I said about the betting and stuff? Legacies of the race car days, I have my means. Okay, then, as long as you don't get lost in the shuffle. I won't. Are you in? That sounds like a pretty sweet deal. Can we get a bobblehead of Honi to put on the dashboard? Honi let out an irritated chirp and pecked at my head. Oh, okay. You can dangle from the rearview mirror like a pair of dice. I know you want to fly. He sang an indignant tune before flying off to the cafe. I want to give you this, she said, pulling the jade hairpin out of her bun. The one side of her hair that isn't shaved fell out like a waterfall. It reminded me of the adage for us to have smooth movements like water. She stuck in my hair and bowed to me. I bowed back. I wake up, collect myself out of the VR room, and get to my apartment. I run through our conversation in my head. Carmelita wants to be her best self and is pushing me to do the same. Isn't that what I want? I think of her dark eyes and motivated fighting stance. I feel a rush of blood travel to my chest. My heart beats fast. Is this the kind of life I want? To leave the confines of the safe digital dojo with all its kitsch temple accoutrements? To encounter new live and fleshy beings that want to punch me out? To fight? But isn't there a thing about dojo camaraderie? Well, certainly, Carmelita and I have formed a kind of fraternal bond, or sororal bond, whatever you want to call it. Solidarity through slugs? I can't think. I rub my temples. It's dark. My eyes adjust to the hollow glow as I watch some bad shorts, stupid people stacking up vacuum robots and seeing if they would suck each other up. How clean can you get the robot tower? And then a series of equally inane videos from there. It's really brainless and I love it. I eat some cup ramen, down a can of apple cider flavored soda. I hear a honk outside. No way. Really? I said to myself in disbelief. It's not possible. How long has it been? I look at my watch and check the date just to be sure I didn't pass out for days. No, just one night. With sticky soda hands, I pull the curtain to look out the window. A fancy jade green car pulls up, its engine EV quiet, and rolls down the window. No one is in the driver or passenger seat. The honk goes again, this time in a chirp chirp sound. I didn't even know that you could program cars to have multiple honking signals. A text comes to my watch. Hey, little birdie, get yourself together. How long will it take you to get ready? Guro Ling. Not a guro yet, but maybe I'll get there, I texted back. Is it really you? Carmelita, Car, here for a reason. Oh, give me a few minutes. I sub-vocalize back, which the watch sends in text form. I wonder vaguely if she needs the text or if she has a direct sub-vocalize function in her new form. I throw clothing, gloves, wraps, all into a bag. I grab another duffel bag and throw in 4 sticks and 2 trainer bolos my dad left for me. Admittedly, I like their weight in my hands. They feel better, more hefty and sturdy than the phantasmic simulated ones in the VR. A drone, bird-like, full of grace, deposits a package at my door. Honey, is that you? I ask. The tail reaches my fingertips and curls a metallic feather-like netting over my index. It gives a 2-chirp note and flies back to the car. Don't keep me waiting, says the text on my phone. Yeah, I sub-vocalize. Keep your wraps on. I rip open the package, and inside the box and tissue paper is a gorgeous jade hairpin, luminescent against the glow of my watch. It's an exact replica of the digital hairpin that Carmelita passed to me in the edutainment center. I throw my hair into a bun and tuck it there. It feels real. It's needles jabbing into my skull in a piercing way that was absent in the program. I touch it, my fingers pushing against the hardness of the jade. That's me, I thought. Hard like jade, resilient and vibrant. I will soon shine. I pick up my bags and leave my room. And what are your thoughts on the story? You can always send me an email. I'm kate@clarkesworldmagazine.com. That's Clark with an E. We have a bunch more stories left for you for the month of November, and I hope that you'll come back and listen, should you so choose. I do hope that you're doing well, all things considered, hanging in there. So please come back and listen again. Until then, my dear listener, I bid you a fond and hopefully very temporary farewell.